Welcome back to the Always Reading Book Club. It is your girl Kiki Reader, and we're going to do a standalone this week. So, this week's book is by author Stella Moore, and it is called Daddy's Arms: A Marriage in Trouble. We meet Olivia. She works at a real estate company. She is about to walk into her building, and this guy almost knocks her down. And she's like, oh my gosh, she thought it was her fault, so she apologized. And she's like, I am so sorry. Are you okay? The guy says he's like, I'm fine, Olivia. And she kind of looks at him because she's like, I don't know this man. So the guy walks off, and the receptionist, Marianne, says that the guy, I guess, that just walked out, he had an interview with James. And James is Olivia's husband. So it's James and Olivia Monroe. So he's the broker of the real estate firm. And so she asked the woman, if, there were any offers that came in about a newer property. And the girl normally appears like really happy, go lucky, but she seems like really nervous and she can't seem to get it together. And this kind of amazes Olivia because it's like, how did she even get this job as, if she can't keep it together? So Marianne says, oh, I'm so sorry, I forgot. And Olivia goes, what do you mean you forgot? She's like, this is a huge deal. This is like 80 grand profit for us. And I think Olivia will get half of that if the sale goes through. So this is apparently an offer someone put in on their dream home. And she pretty much figured this is something that would go through because this person really wanted it. So it's like a sure thing, but the paperwork's not done. So Olivia's going in on her. Marianne is sounding so flimsy. But then when James comes in and wants to know what's going on, oh, now Marianne sounds self-assured. She's like, I'll get it handled. And so Olivia is like, first of all, a little conflicted by this complete turnaround in Marianne's demeanor. Like, how do you go from being all flimsy, I don't know what happened, I don't know. And then as soon as James comes in, it's like, it's not a problem, I will get it handled. Like, very self-assured. And James is still trying to find out what's going on, and she says, don't worry about it. We'll figure it out. We'll get it done. And she goes into her office. So her and her husband, they have been on and off for the past few months, kind of like just not in the best place in their marriage. And so normally when he comes into a room, she can't like take her eyes off of him and vice versa. But lately the dynamic is just so off. They're not like that. And so she's sitting down at her desk, and James comes in and wants to know what that was all about. She just tells James it's nothing for you to worry about. So then James tells her, we're going to have a discussion tonight about their marriage. He says, I want you home no later than 6:30. I'll have dinner ready. You just need to be there. And he leaves. So now she's freaking out because she's wondering, like, the communication's been off. They haven't been interacting with each other. And she's terrified he may be at the point where he's ready to break up with her. Like, he's ready to divorce her. So she winds up calling her best friend Shannon, who she says looks like a supermodel. They meet up at a coffee shop. Even though our girl Olivia doesn't drink coffee, she likes hot chocolate, so that's what she gets. And so she tells Shannon what's going on. And Shannon's like, you all really do need to have a real conversation. But also try to seduce him. You know? And so she decides that's what she's going to try and do. And she's just hope it's not too late for their marriage. So Olivia gets home. She's nervous because there's a fear that he might really reject her. So we find out they've been married for about 12 years. I want to say she met him in college. And again, the fire that she normally feels and sees, it hasn't been there these past few months. So he's her daddy. I guess this is like a dom submissive relationship, but daddy and like it is maybe a little different. So they've been married for 12 years. This is kind of different because we normally read books that, review books that are just starting out, right? Like you may just find out someone's a dom or whatever, and then the woman is figuring out if she's a submissive or not. But we've never read a book where they're 12 years into this. So I thought this was a very interesting take that we get to kind of see how a marriage that's like dom submissive, how down the road what can kind of happen. I think that's just really interesting. Olivia comes home, she showers, she shaves, and she has on her nightgown, but it's his favorite color, which is lavender. And he comes in, and at first it kind of appeared like he didn't want to talk, but he tells her he'll be back. Wait for her, wait for him in her room. So I don't know if they've got a separate room. It sounds like this is their separate room where they play. So it takes him a long time to come back. Eventually he does, and he calls and he says Olivia Jane. That's what he calls her when they're going to have a real conversation, and this freaks her out. So we find out what kind of happened to the breakdown of the communication in a relationship. So he tells her, he's like, after some punishments, he noticed that she would get really distant for like a day or two, and he thought that he was pushing her too far with the punishments. So he backed off. And she admits that she was having a hard time submitting at that time and that she should have said something to him. So it kind of, the fault lies on both because they both noticed a difference, but nobody wanted to say anything. And now they just have allowed this gap in time to happen, and it's gotten bigger and bigger. So he apologized to her. He said, I wasn't being a good daddy. So again, this sounds a little different than just dominant. This is a daddy and I don't even like to say it. It's a little weird to me, okay? Because I don't fully understand it. But it's like he's a daddy and she acts like a little girl. And all I could think of was, it's a good thing they don't have kids. I'm just saying, if you need this dynamic, I'm just saying, that's going to sound real judgy, but I'm just being super honest. So anyway, he says to her that whole spiel about, I wasn't a good daddy because I didn't, I knew something was wrong and I didn't get to the bottom of it. And I'm like, okay. So, and I do like that he is taking responsibility, you know? I do like that because it is that thing of, if I had fought a little harder, you know, we won't be in this mess, Because again, when you don't communicate and you allow time to pass, that's where it starts to strain more and more until a lot of times it just snaps and it just breaks, you know? Hopefully they've caught it before that. I hope so. Because they've been together for 12 years. So something as small as communication, I say small because after 12 years you should have good communication skills, I would think. You know, when your marriage can be saved on it, I would think you would be able to do that. But at the same time, you know what? If you all met, I think she was in her early 20s, she's now about 32, you're not going to be the same person that you were at 20. right? So I can maybe see why for her she was okay with the punishments then, but for whatever reason, something's going on with her that the punishments are doing something to her. I don't know how severe the punishments are. They haven't gone into detail like that. Um, but yeah, you can see how some things could definitely change. So anyway, he winds up walking off, and she screams out that she misses her daddy. She wants her daddy back. And he's like, "Are you sure?" So then they go into a discussion about, what happened, and they're going to try and do a better job of communicating, and we'll see. So then we switch to James's POV. You know, I'm a sucker. I love it when they change POVs. And I love the fact that we're getting this daddy Dom, you know, who, again, this daddy thing seems to be a little different. But he winds up giving her punishment, which is like the spanking on the ass. He does it with the panties on, and then he takes take them off, and then he gives it to her again. And so the whole time she's saying like, "Daddy, it hurts," all this type of shit. So it's like, with the other ones, how they would have them say master or sir or something like that. But this one is like daddy and little girl, which is that's what's creeping me out a little bit about it. But anyway, he's gonna have her write out 50 lines of saying like that she won't act out at work and all this type of stuff. So again, it's like this like daddy daughter relationship. That's what's kind of freaking me out with it. Even if you say daddy little girl, it's just it's weird. But apparently there is a room for this, and this is their type of relationship. So he leaves to go make dinner, and because they kissed, and she was ready to like have him right then, and he wanted to fuck her. But he's like also punishing himself because he didn't do good as a daddy dom in allowing to the time, the thing that this space, he allowed that to happen. So he's like kind of punishing himself as well. So he goes, he makes dinner, and he also tells her if she doesn't have the 50 lines done, that she'll get another punishment. So we'll see how this goes. Again, everyone, have their different types of proclivities, and this is something, I don't know, they're two adults, they seem to enjoy it. They need this some kind of way. So let's see what happens. We switch back to Olivia's POV. She's right in the middle of writing the sentences. She starts to cry. She's upset. She feels like this isn't fair because she's getting punished, but she's not the only reason that everything fell apart between the two of them. And so in a fit of disobedience, she gets up and goes to his room, gets on his Kindle, and she starts reading. And he comes in and he's like, "What are you doing?" She's like, "I'm reading." He's like, "Dinner's done." And he looks at her like, "What the fuck?" And he's like, "Tell me the truth. Why aren't you doing what you're supposed to do?" And she finally says to him, because she doesn't feel like she should be the only one punished, X, Y, and Z. He tells her he understands, but she still has to finish her punishment. There is no, renegotiation with that. And he upped it from 50 lines to 100 lines. And if she doesn't finish, she's going to get the belt. So she goes back and she had this whole meltdown because she's thinking like, "Oh my God, it's my fault. I did this. I keep ruining things. And, they're supposed to be starting over fresh, and I'm, doing it again." And she starts writing, and then eventually she goes to dinner. He comes back. They're in the kitchen, in the little nook area. He made spaghetti and meatballs. They eat. And while they're eating, they talk, and he wants to know what really happened with Marianne earlier. And so eventually she tells him, and she says, they're going to get everything fixed. And he, of course, is like, if you ever need anything, any type of help, you let me know. If you're having any difficulty with any client, you know, you need to let me know. And she tells him if she needs him, she'll tell him. She says, unfortunately, sometimes people still um, want to hear it from a man's, like, let's say this client, I forget their name, but they don't want to come down on the price. She's already told them that it's overpriced. She's already explained why it's overpriced. But they're selling their home. They feel like this price is correct. So this is where she's like, you know what? At this point, maybe if they hear it from you, being that this is your company, they'll probably do it on top of the fact that you're a man. They might listen and actually bring down the price. And he's like, okay, I'll do it. I'll talk to him. But for her, it was kind of like when she has to tell him something, it's like she can't do it. She doesn't like to admit that there's something she can't do. That's like really, really, really hard for her. So then after dinner, he tells her on her knees and to stare at him. He grabs her hair, shoves the dick down her throat, and comes down her throat. And then afterwards, he tells her to take off her clothes. She gets her ass smacked again. It hurts. And then he winds up fucking her hard and makes her come twice. After their fuck session, she just laid in his arms. They both, of course, have missed having this time together. And it's going to be difficult to kind of maybe not have sex. I think that's probably the easier part. But when something comes up, to actually really vocalize, hey, this is happening, I don't like it. Because it's easier to say we're going to communicate better. But sometimes it's a little more difficult to put it in play when you have been basically not wanting to communicate. You know what I mean? So again, hopefully they can get it together. So she was trying to get out of the spankings because she's got more coming to her. He told her that's not going to happen. He did tell her she needed to apologize to Mary Ann and that if she needs his attention, not to do any antics at the office. If she needs correction, he'll do it. But she also said to him, don't do it in front of people. You know, if we're behind a closed door, fine. But like, don't try and, do daddy dumb in front of other people. So she finished writing her lines because he sent her up to do that. And she gets 22 hard whips. She thinks it's excessive. She's about to bolt. It started to hurt really bad, but she took it. Afterwards, she cried. And she cried for all the times that she didn't cry the past few months as well. Just kind of let it all out. So, again, hopefully this is going to be a clean slate. They're going to talk to each other and be honest about their shit. Fingers crossed. So, it's the next morning. And this is wild, okay? Because Olivia went to look at her ass and she didn't see welts on it. And it made her upset. She likes proof of the punishments. So she goes up to him and she's really sassy with him because they're about to, basically about to make him run late. And she still hadn't gotten dressed and she's giving him all kind of sass. And he just told her to go and get dressed. And that wasn't the response she wanted. She wanted to provoke him. She wanted him to punish her. So here they are again, starting all over again, not communicating, not saying it. So he doesn't budge. But he yanked her up, put her over his lap, and spanked her ass. And she finally told the truth of what she was doing and why she was acting like that. And she likes the reminder of the pain. And I'm like, okay, so she's a bit of a masochist too, it kind of sounds like. So then we switch to James's POV. They go to work. He goes in the office. Marianne pops in, gives him a package, and says, this was left for you. He opens it up. It's the cover of a realtor magazine that Olivia is on the cover of, and she looks absolutely amazing. He knows she's going to be really happy about it. And so when Olivia comes in, she does apologize to Marianne, which shocks Marianne, that she did it. And then he shows Olivia the magazine, and she's really excited. And when Marianne leaves out, he winds up kissing Olivia, and she gets in. They're getting into it, and then someone clears their throat, and it's another employee. And they just were like, I'm just glad you guys finally work your things out. So everyone, even in the office, knew that something was off between them, knew that their dynamic, something was going on. She talks to her friend Shannon. She's really happy for her. They're going to go out tomorrow night to celebrate. Because tonight she's going to celebrate with James. End of the day comes, he tells her they can go wherever she wants to celebrate, and she's like, she just wants to go home and for him to have his way with her. He says, that's fine. So he tells her to go home and get ready for him. He's going to make a stop before he comes home. She races home. She takes a bath. She gets all ready. He comes in. And again, they really love a good punishment. So he winds up putting an anal plug in her. He winds up putting a steel ball gag in her mouth. Um, Fucks her relentlessly. Takes a cane to her ass so that way it'll leave marks. As you know, she has to see the marks. So for them, they have a great fun session. And afterwards, he tells her, he loves her. She tells him she loves him. And she falls asleep. So she wakes up the next morning. It's a little late. She comes downstairs and she's like, first she stopped off to look at the marks and she saw them and she was happy. She goes downstairs because she can smell bacon. He's cooking breakfast, and he tells her, she's like, "What? Why did you let me sleep so late?" And he says, "Well, I figured you needed the rest, and it's Saturday. It's not like you have to be to work or anything." So they watched the news, and she doesn't like to, but she looked up and she saw that a woman named Angela Winters, who was a realtor that she'd known, that I guess the house that she was showing, the Angela Winter woman, the family found her dead. So she's been taken out. And she, of course, is like, who the hell? Like, why would someone do this? You know? It really puts her in her feelings. She likes to draw, but it's a talent she has, but it's not something that she wants to make a career out of. That's too taxing. She just prefers to do it at home. And so some of her drawings are around their home. So this one, of course, is disturbing. And she wanted him to see it afterwards. And so she gets a phone call from Shannon. They're supposed to go out tonight, but they're not going to go out on Monday night. And he told her she had a 3-drink max that she could drink. And she's like, 3 drinks? That's it. But I guess when she goes out with Shannon, she seems to get in trouble. And he told her she needed to be clear-headed. And so apparently one of the worst punishments came at the hands of some time she had spent with Shannon. She did some shit she ain't had no business. And so now she's got a drink limit. So they snuggle up and they watch horror movies because she likes horror movies, which makes sense to me because she likes marks on her ass. Okay. That makes sense. It's the next day, Sunday. She's looking at the announcement of the funeral and everything. It's still mind-boggling to her what happened. Doorbell rings. James goes to get the door. She can hear this fury in his voice. We find out it's the 2 detectives. They have questions for her. So basically what is happening, that they found the magazine, I guess Angela is in that magazine that Olivia's in. She's in there. And the magazine was at the scene and it had something written like bitch on it or whatever. So they wanted to know, like, what was the vibe? How was she acting? just trying to get a some type of idea of her mood that day. And she was like, she was really nice. Nothing appeared to be off. She was a little nervous about the photo shoot, but that was it, you know? And so they, of course, are like, did she, you know, appears if someone was going to do something, or just like all kind of stuff. So she starts to get upset with the questioning. And he winds up kicking him out because he was like, you're not going to upset her. So the detectives leave, and she wants to, no, James is like, just invite Shannon over here. And she didn't really like that idea, but she agreed to. Um, but I'm kind of, well, I guess, you want your girlfriend time, right? It doesn't need to be, you don't need to be supervised during your girlfriend time. I'm assuming that's where she's coming from. Like, this is my home girl. We should be able to enjoy each other. But he's worried now because the fact that that magazine was at the scene, he's thinking something else is going on. And so he, of course, is trying to keep her safe. So then he tells her, you can have one drink and you got to be home by 10. And if you break either one of those rules, you're going to need, you're not going to be able to sit for a week because I'm going to take the hairbrush as the punishment to your ass. So she's frustrated because sometimes the punishments are really hard for her, even though we know she likes marks on her ass. Um, but we'll see if she does it. We'll see. So it's Monday. James wanted to stay home and work. He even tells her, like, I'll stay home with you. She's like, no, I need to go in. I don't need to hide away. When she goes in, everyone is around Marianne's desk, and they, of course, are like, are you okay? Blah, blah, blah. She walks off. Marianne comes up behind her and says, if she ever needs to talk to anybody about it, she's here, all this type of stuff. She's like, thanks. She's like, if I need it, I'll reach out. And she actually wanted to be nice to her, and she invited Marianne to come out with her and Shannon that night. And Marianne was so excited. She was like, absolutely, oh my gosh. So Olivia goes in. She's got so many emails, so many texts, so many messages of people, reaching out to her to check on her, but also for comments about the situation. She's got press trying to talk to her. So then we switch to James's POV, and James hears her spiraling. Like, he can tell. She's like one step from a breakdown. So he has to go in there to help her, tell her to, like, breathe, get herself together. And after he got her to kind of calm down, he locked the door and he ate her pussy. And that made her feel better. It really relaxed her. And she, of course, is like, thank you, Daddy. He tells her, if you need me for anything, and I do mean anything, you let me know. She says, I will. She gets through the rest of the day, and when it's time to go, she lets him know she's going to have Marianne come with them. So Shannon comes to pick him up, and of course, before she leaves, she goes to see Daddy Dom. He does tell her, don't forget the rules, and she said she won't. So they wind up going to this little spot, ordered margaritas, but the margarita's in like a bucket. It's like a big margarita. And even though technically it's one drink, she's like, she should be within the rules. And I'm wondering if she's going to confess but if it's too big, if she's drunk, he's going to know it wasn't just one drink that you had. Even though technically it's in one glass. It's just huge. We switch to James's POV, and it's about 10:10 at night. But she does have a 15-minute grace period. But when the door, well, shall we say, before the door even opens, he hears the giggling. He knows she's drunk. So eventually they're able to open the door. They fall in, Shannon, and she's telling him, I only had one drink. I only had one drink. He, of course, is pissed because this does not look like one drink to him. He knows she's not being honest. She winds up, Shannon, breaking a vase. It was a vase that they got on their honeymoon, which kind of sobered up Olivia a little bit. And she was kind of like, oh my God, that was from our honeymoon. She goes to clean it up, and James is like, stop, because she's going to hurt herself. So he goes and gets the stuff to clean it up. He takes Olivia over to the stairs and sits her down, gets everything cleaned up. They take Shannon, drop her off at the guest room, and then they go to their room. Well, they call it her room, Olivia's room, but I'm still thinking it's kind of like the playroom. So the next morning, she wakes up with a headache, pounding. James turns on the lights, and he's telling her to get up. She's got to go to work. She's like, I feel sick. He's like, nope, doesn't matter. You're going to go to work. So she showers. She feels bad because she knows that even though it was technically one drink, it was a bucket. Like, it was a huge fucking drink. Which probably consisted of like 3 or 4 drinks in one. So when she goes downstairs and she hears James and Shannon talking, Shannon is telling him like, no, it was just one big drink. And he knows she's trying to take up for Olivia, as she would. I mean, she's the best friend. We get it, And Olivia kind of felt bad. She didn't like to see them fighting. It bothers her. And so Shannon also talked to him as well. She doesn't like the fact that James and Olivia, they're fighting, So, but I don't know. I'm going to say this. If they're not in the best place, I don't know why you would think her getting drunk would be okay. But I do have to also say, Olivia never told her that it was a 1 drink minimum. She never told her that, so Shannon had no way of knowing. So I can't really knock Shannon too much, because Olivia is her friend. It was Olivia's responsibility to say, hey, listen, I can only have 1 drink. And I don't know, maybe Shannon would have been like, let's just get something different. Or maybe she would have tried to still say, well, this is technically 1 drink. I don't know. Shannon eventually leaves, and Olivia wants her punishment over and done with, but that's not going to happen. He gives her a swat a few times, but he tells her, you're not going to force me to deal with this right now when I'm not ready. He's like, later tonight. And then she felt bad, and then she left, and Shannon was waiting outside for her ride share. And so she went outside, she talked to Shannon, and she told Shannon, I was only supposed to have 1 drink. And Shannon was like, well, why didn't you just tell me that? We could have had just a glass of wine. Why wouldn't you tell me that? And for Olivia, it's the fact that she's supposed to be this big, bad realtor, but yet she's got this daddy Dom that she has rules, that she's got to follow, and it doesn't match up with what one would see. And so therefore it sounds like you're a little ashamed of what you're doing, which to me means, are you really 100% behind what you're doing? So Shannon tells her, just because I haven't had a daddy in a long time doesn't mean that I'm going to try and force you to live your life a different way. And it kind of hurt Shannon's feelings that she didn't trust her enough to say, this is what, basically the rule that he put down. Kind of bothered Shannon that she wouldn't tell her that. And so, even more so, I don't get why, like, if it's a brand new person who knows nothing about the lifestyle, I still feel like you should be confident enough, to possibly, well, it ain't nobody business. Let's be real. But if someone's your friend, your best friend, and they know of the lifestyle, I don't see why she had such an issue telling her. That's where I was kind of like, ugh. And I kind of understood Shannon feeling like, I thought we were closer than that. And so she, of course, Olivia feels bad. Shannon leaves. And Olivia goes to get ready for work. And she, of course, is just dreading to get through it. Because, at the end of the night, she's got a punishment coming. Olivia walks into the building. And Marianne does not seem drunk, any type of hungover. She's perky. She's like, "Hi, Olivia. How are you? I had such a blast last night." And she tells her, "I'll keep your secret." And so, of course, Olivia's looking at her like, what secret are you talking about? And she says, "About, James being your daddy." And she's thinking, "Oh my gosh, I was really drunk if I told her about that." And so she says, "Oh, well, thank you for keeping that." So I guess, again, I'm... new people, I get why you wouldn't just up and tell them. I do understand that, okay? Because don't get it twisted. Everybody doesn't need to know what you and your husband do in the confinements of your home. However, my complaint still is with Shannon. She could have told Shannon because Shannon already knows that lifestyle. So it's not like it would have been something that's foreign to Shannon. So I completely get why Shannon was hurt. But being her response to Marianne, which is, "Oh my God, I told you that," like the secret that no one's supposed to know, I kind of get it, because I'm not going to lie. When I read this book, as I'm reading it, it's just kind of like, it seems like a daddy little girl situation. It's a little eerie to me. So I do understand why she wouldn't be just yelling that out to everybody. I kind of wish they had just a regular dominant submissive relationship. I really do, because the one they have really puts them, in my mind, in pervy land. Like, Dom submissive really doesn't, because it's like it's two adults and they're making that decision. But this Dom daddy and little girl, it feels weird. It really does. So I get why she's a little embarrassed to like tell people, because again, I'm like, y'all don't need no fucking kids. Because if you're already calling her little girl, what the fuck are you gonna call your kid? I don't know. It's weird to me. Cause yeah, it's a lot. But anyway, I digress. So Olivia goes in her office. She gets an email from James saying that, the couple, or the guy that's selling the home, he basically wants to go through James now. And so she gets really pissed, and she hits reply all, saying that, that it's fucked up that they're doing this, and like, kind of how stupid they are, and like all this type of shit. And she wasn't paying attention to the fact that the email also had the fucking people in it. So she should have just hit reply, not reply all. Well, she does the reply all, and then she gets an instant message from James saying, "Come to my office now." And so when she comes in, he tells her what she did. And she's like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." Like, she felt so awful. And he was just like, "This is what happens when you go out and you get drunk. You've got a headache. You don't feel the best. And you're not paying attention." And she just felt awful. And she decided she's going to leave the office and she's going to go work somewhere else for the day. So she goes to an Ethan Allen, because they have Wi-Fi. And she's going to work from there. So she gets a call from James. They have a talk. He apologizes for getting so upset with her. She apologizes profusely for what she did. She's still getting the punishment when she gets home. but she's at least able to get some work done before she heads out of Ethan Allen. So she's got a showing with a couple, and she gets that done. They want to put in an offer. The husband's being a little tightwad, but hopefully they'll get this home. She's on her way home, and she calls James, and he tells her to go home, put on the pajamas, have her ass bare, and to get the hairbrush and wait for him in the corner. So that's what she does. Eventually he comes. Keep in mind, while she's waiting, like, her mind is just racing. And that's part of the torture, she thinks. And she's wondering if that's just, part of the punishment. Well, he comes in, and he knows that she understood that jumbo margarita was more than one drink. He knew it. So he told her, you're going to have a red ass. And he said, she's never going to, like, make that type of a mistake again. Because he's like, I'm going to make sure you don't make that mistake again. Try and pull that stunt. She starts freaking out because she's not a fan of anal. And that's the punishment. So she gets the brush to the ass, and then he fucks her in the ass and comes inside her. And now, of course, now they went into, like, more detail, but it's too long. And that was the gist of it, So that's what her punishment was. So then we switch to James's POV. And Marianne comes in to tell him that Mr. Jackson is here to see him. And he's like, does he have an appointment? She's like, no, but he said you told him that he could come by at any time. So she brings him back, and the Jackson guy is looking all smug and stuff. And he's like, I take it you've handled that situation. And he said, yeah, I spoke with the agent, X, Y, and Z. And the guy's like, well, did you fire her? Because he wanted her fired. And he said no. He said, but we will implement some of these suggestions. Actually, no, let me say it correctly. He asked Mr. Jackson, did you implement any of the suggestions that she gave you? And the guy starts throwing insults at Olivia. And now James is pissed. Because now he even sees more so like this guy was nothing but a fucking jerk. He clearly has been awful for Olivia to deal with. But he's also getting upset because Olivia's been dealing with this and she hasn't told him. That's pissing him off too. So he winds up going off on the guy and telling him that, all that shit you're basically saying, you're talking about not only my top agent, but you're talking about my wife. All the color from the man's face drains, and James lets him know he's not going to work with him. He needs to find another agency. And the guy's like, I'm going to sue you. I'm going to take you for everything, and all this type of stuff as he's walking out. So then James goes to Olivia, and she had just gotten some good news about clothes that basically was like $10,000 over cost. And he told her about the situation with Mr. Jackson. And he's like, why didn't you tell me how bad it was? And she's like, because I don't need you to fight all of my battles. And he says, that's not okay. He's like, I'm here to help you. There's certain things it shouldn't even get to that point. He was like, what I just experienced with him, I know he had to be absolutely awful to you. You shouldn't have let it get to that situation. You should have come to me. Now, I get what he's saying because of their type of relationship, like the daddy take care of me type of thing. So I kind of get why he feels even more so, why didn't you come to me? But it's like, y'all were in a bad place. Like, no, she's not going to come to you. So I kind of feel like that wasn't really anything to really go off on her about, because it's like you all were not in a good place to receive. You couldn't receive that information at that time. You were barely talking. He goes back to his office and gets a call from his brother, Brian. He's a lawyer. And he kind of is asking him, like, can this guy really sue me? Like, is this a legal case? And he says it really isn't, but just look out on social media because that's what he'll try and do the damage of your reputation, you know, put up all those negative type of posts. And he's like, okay, cool, whatever. So now it's time for them to leave. They're going to go to the memorial for the woman, Angela, that was killed. She, of course, feels sad, you know, and she feels like it's her fault. And it's kind of like, how is it your fault? You didn't have anything to do with this, you know? And she feels sorry also about the situation with Mr. Jackson. And he, again, is like, you've already been forgiven. You don't need to think about it, you know? Do you need another spanking? And she says maybe just a little when we get home. Nothing major. Because remember, she does like him. So that's where it's kind of like I get a little confused. She likes the punishments, but then she'll feel like some of them are too harsh. But then if he doesn't punish her, she you know, starts acting out like a child. It's a little baffling for me. So they go to the funeral. There's a woman there who looks just like Angela. We find out that's her mother. And she reaches out to Olivia and says, you know, she talked about you after meeting you that day. And she said how inspired she was by how, with all the success that you had, you still weren't some cold, hard person, that you were still sweet and kind. And so when the magazine cover came out, she told me you were that woman. And Olivia said she was really sweet to me as well. She was a real sweetheart. So they're getting ready to leave, and the woman says, you know, make sure, you know, you keep, you know, be safe when you go out on your showings, X, Y, and Z. And James said, I'll keep her safe. You don't worry, ma'am, you know. So as they're leaving, they're outside, and the detectives pop up, and they're like, we need to talk to you. So the funeral director said that they could use the office, and so they go in, and we find out there's been another murder. So she goes in the room. Shannon's there and another woman named Tracy and maybe someone else. And Shannon was happy to see her because Shannon had thought something had happened to her because all they had said was that a woman had been, you know, taken out. So we find out the woman's name is Nancy Black. It hasn't hit the press yet that she's been killed. And they're trying to find out if with any of the showings that they have done, if anyone's been a little too friendly, if they've noticed anything. And the Tracy girl got pissed off, and she's like, this guy's already killed 2 people. Like, clearly there's nothing you all can do. And she storms out. So then Shannon and Olivia are freaking out. And so Shannon asked if she could come over to Olivia and James's house tonight because she doesn't want to be by herself. And I get that. And Olivia said, of course, you know, as long as you want. And she forgot to ask Daddy. So then she, of course, asked him if she could stay. And he, of course, was like, of course she can, you know. So he tells her, though, when you know, she gets home, she has to go to her corner. And she's like, wait a minute, this sounds like a punishment. And he's like, you seem to misbehave when Shannon is around. So what he's going to do is put a butt plug in her. So that way it'll stay in her mind. And his brother's name is Brian. I'm so sorry. I said Brian. I don't know where that came from. Brian. So anyway, she goes home and that's what he does to her. Put the butt plug in. And then Bryant comes over, James's brother. She hauls downstairs to him, jumps up, hugs him. And he's like, hey, brat, you know, because that's what he calls her. And he tells James, I see you haven't tamed her. And he's like, I tried to, but, you know, she's a hard one. So then he gives her some peppermint schnapps. And she's like, oh, my gosh, it's my favorite. I'm going to go make a drink now. but she had to ask for permission. He says, why don't you wait until Shannon gets here to see if she wants one? And she's like, okay, daddy. And she goes off and she puts it up. Well, she didn't just go put it up. She drank some anyway. So apparently it's this thing that I assume they didn't do any punishments in front of anybody. Okay? That was me assuming, and that's why they say you should never assume. Well, if they're comfortable enough in front of certain people, they can punish in front of people as well as allow other people to punish the person. And so she gets a spanking from James, and then James gives her over to Bryant, and he spanks her. And of course she's wet. Again, this is a different world. It's different. So afterwards, James drags her upstairs and he fucks her. And then they go downstairs and they walk in, and Shannon and Bryant are going at it because they can't stand each other. And Shannon is like, I'm not in the market for a daddy. But even if I was, it wouldn't be you. Olivia feels as if she's not being 100% honest with that statement. She doesn't know what happened with the last one, which is where I'm like, okay, what exactly happened? And if you all are best friends, wouldn't your best friend know? Especially if the relationship is over. So I'm kind of wondering, are y'all as close as y'all think? Because you don't want to tell her about your daddy rules, and she is saying she doesn't want a daddy, but you don't fully know why she feels that way. Seems a little weird to me. So they're going to order pizza, and they're going to try to come up with a plan to try and keep these women safe from this psychopath that's on the loose. So Olivia's barely eating. She's like, I can't. It's like she's the one that wanted the pizza, but with this thing hovering over them, she doesn't have an appetite. James is like, you got to eat. And she snaps, I'm not hungry. And he was ready to give her a spanking, but Bryant was like, give her a break. She's stressed. All her. So Bryant and Shannon, they keep getting into it because Shannon works for the rival real estate company from James, because James owns it, from James. But she hasn't told her boss what's going on. And Bryant was like, that's real smart for you not to take this serious, And she's like, I am smart and I'm not going back and forth with you. So they could genuinely hate each other, but I'm going to go with, I think they like each other, and it's coming out in a different way. It's almost like little kids, That's what it kind of appears to be. So Olivia, the rule is going to be that when they have showings, they have to have someone go with them. Shannon agrees to it. And they take her to, I guess, what is normally the playroom, Olivia's room. They take her in there. And Olivia brings up the thing about having a daddy. And Shannon's just like, that's not going to work for me. I don't want someone telling me what I can and can't do. X, Y, and Z. And she decides, Olivia, she's not going to keep pressing her, but she'll try and talk to her again about it. So then James comes, gets Olivia, and we find out that he saw a place in Ocean City, Maryland, because they're in Baltimore, by the way, that he thought would be a really nice place for them to have for like a vacation home. They're asking, he feels a little too much for it, but he's thinking maybe he can get them to work down. Maybe they can rent it out. And she suggests, what if Bryant goes in? Because he loves the beach. He's always talking about getting a place there. So maybe that will work, And it will make it a lot cheaper for us. So he's like, okay, that's a possibility. I'll talk to Bryant about it. So then we switch to the POV of the killer. Now, we are not given an identity, but the person basically is taking out each real estate agent And he's going to leave the main person that this is all about for the grand finale. He calls her like a cunt whore. Again, we don't know who he is, where this person's come from. So this should be pretty wild, finding out who this killer is. By the end of the week, Olivia is exhausted. The worrying has really caught up to her. Shannon's job told her that she was overreacting and they refused to make any type of concessions for her. Even after James even called them, they just don't think it's that big of a deal. So it's Friday, she's leaving out, and Marianne is at the desk, and she did snap a little bit at her, but Marianne, she apologized. She told her it's stressed. I'm sorry. We find out that Marianne has a date. It's her third date with the guy. She's really excited. She goes downstairs. She's met with flowers and a surprise trip from James. He's taking her to the beach, and she's so excited. She's so happy. They get there. They're renting out the house that they're thinking about potentially buying. And she looked at it. She loved it. And she felt like this was the place. But she also felt like we need to look at other ones as well before we make a decision. So Bryant is going to put up about 70%. And they're doing all cash. And that way he'll have, the beach house most of the time. But this way it also stops them from having to take out a second mortgage, things like that. So they are going to look at other properties first. And then if all else fails, they'll put in an offer on this one. So she winds up sucking him off. He comes on her face. She gets cleaned up. And then she puts on this outfit. And she feels like she looks like a whale. Like she's too big. And he spanks her and has her look at herself in the mirror and apologize to herself. And he told her, if you want to lose some weight, you can. We can look at healthier options when we get home, but you're not fat and you're not going to talk to yourself that way. So after that, they head to the restaurant. They eat, and while she's having her dessert, he's thinking about her mouth again. He wanted to take her back to the house, but there's a carnival at the end of the boardwalk, and she wanted to go, and she had on heels, but thankfully he had brought sandals for her to put on. And so they walk down in one of the shops. They see this really cute, beautiful vase, and he just wanted to go in and just kind of see what it costs. And she's like, I don't need you to, get me anything. I was just admiring it. That's all. And it wasn't as expensive as he thought. So he gets it, and he's like, he'll have it delivered to the house. And so they have a little discussion, and he says to her, understand this. I know that I don't have to buy you everything, but I like to be able to spoil you. So just give me that opportunity to do it. He was like, the idea of losing you is devastating to me. So if this brings me some form of pleasure, please just give that to me. And at that, she decides, I'm not going to complain anymore about you spoiling me. She gets it. So the next morning when he wakes up, she's not in the bed. He freaks out. She comes in, and she's like, you're finally up. And he gives her a few swats because he was terrified something had happened to her. And he's like, don't you go anywhere without me. And so she promised not to even get in the pool without him. So, especially going in the ocean, he's like, don't even do that. And she just agreed. She's like, okay, I understand. They head back to the city, and when they get to the house, Bryant is on their steps. He's looking sad. And she rushes to him, and she's like, what happened? What happened? And we find out that Shannon has been attacked. Now, she's not dead, but they don't know if she's going to make it. So at first, James was like, for her to go upstairs, and she's like, no, I'm going to the hospital now. He was like, oh, I'm sorry, shoot, yeah, we're going now. So they all get in Bryant's car, and they go to the hospital, and she, of course, sees her friend looking so frail. She'd always, seemed larger than life, and here she was, bruised, looking horrible. So her mom, Shannon's mom, whose name is Mary, she's there, and they're all having a conversation. And Olivia was like, trying to say that Bryant had a crush on Shannon and all this type of shit. And the mom was like, well, what do you do for a living? And he says, I'm an attorney. Um, and the mom says, what type? Criminal? And we find out that the mom was a criminal attorney, but she changed to real estate after she had Shannon due to her husband asking for her to change. So Shannon wakes up as the mom asks him if he owned a home, and he told her that he rents. And James jumped in and said, but he's going to be going in on a property with us in Ocean City. And we hear Shannon groggily say, that figures. And so Shannon doesn't remember what happened to her. Again, she's groggy. The doctors come in to check her, and they take Olivia to speak with the detective. They want to talk to her. And they're asking her questions. And it's just kind of like she has no idea who this could be. She has no idea where this is coming from. She has nothing. She doesn't have any situations that alarmed her. So she's like about to freak out. And so Bryant has to like calm her down. And because they're asking her questions like she fucking knows, but she has kind of figured out that she's got to be the end game. Because it's all happening around. Tracy, apparently, she left out of town. When that heifer said y'all can't do anything, she fucking dipped. So that only leaves Olivia left. So she knows she's the last person. Like, they're coming for her. But again, she has no clue who it could be that would do this. So she leaves from there with the detectives. She's got a lot of guilt because that means if she's the last person, that means these people have been killed and hurt because someone is trying to get to her. So I can understand her feeling guilty. Makes sense. Just saying. The next few days, they go and visit her, our girl Shannon, every day until visiting hours are over. And on this particular day, Shannon is going to get out in like a day or so, and she's going to come back to Olivia and James's house. However, Shannon's mom wants her to come back home. So she's trying to like figure it out. So Bryant is like, you'll be much safer with Olivia and the rest of us. Shannon and Bryant get into an argument. Shannon winds up throwing something at him. It misses and it hits the wall. When they leave out, Olivia sees James and Bryant talking, and James tells Bryant to stop by the house for a little bit, and he says okay. So when they get in the car, Olivia wants to know, well, what have you all got planned? What were you talking about? And he won't tell her. She keeps asking. He says, now you're going to get a punishment when we get to the house. So she gets back to the house. Brian is there, and we find out, I guess they kind of share her sometimes, because she first gets a swat from Bryant. Okay, she gets 3 swats from him to the ass. He's got a rougher, harder hand than James's, and she actually likes that. Okay. Then James gets his swats in for punishment. And after that, she's leaking. She's wet. And so then Bryant starts fingering her and makes her come. And then after that, she sucks off Brian. I think she swallows. And then she gets fucked by James. So again, I guess they kind of share her sometimes. So then afterwards, they're all together in the bed and they fall asleep. So James and Bryant, they get out of bed and they go have a talk. And they're both really frustrated because knowing that this killer is on the loose, Bryant is so worried about Shannon's safety as well. So next day they go to the hospital to pick up Shannon. Bryant and Shannon are fussing. And James is like, you gotta calm down, dude. Like, she's already stressed out. We can't add to that. You've gotta chill. Because he comes out, Bryant does, in daddy mode, you know? And he's like, I'm not in daddy mode. And he's like, yes, you are. And he's like, no, she just likes to get under my skin. So eventually they get back to the house, get everything set up for her. And James talks to Shannon about the rules and, and the rules that he has for Olivia as well. And Shannon's like, you know, I would never make her break any rules. I don't do that, you know. I don't necessarily like them all the time, but I will respect them, you know. And so she gave it up because maybe she figured out having a bunch of rules isn't for her. Maybe she needs more freedom. I don't know. So while Olivia's making up the bed for Shannon, she of course has this blush come across her face because she was getting busy with the brothers in here. Okay, so at first she wasn't going to tell her, but then eventually she does, and she of course is like, don't judge. So she's like, no judgment. So she tells her that sometimes, you know, James shares her with Bryant. And so Shannon's like, so wait a minute, you don't get not just one hot brother, you get two? And she's like, yeah. And she really loves it, okay? So then they get on the subject again of her stating that she doesn't want a daddy again, our girl Shannon. And Olivia thinking that's not true. And she tells her, like, I see the interaction between you and Brian, and she wanted more of the story about what kind of made her stop going to the play parties, because apparently that's how they met Shannon, at the play parties, and she had a daddy Dom at that time. But once she let go of her daddy Dom, she stopped going to the play parties. I wonder if we'll get that story, but she doesn't go into it. She just says she needs to take a nap. And so Olivia leaves, goes downstairs, and Bryant is very much upset that Shannon's not coming down for dinner. And he's like, she needs to eat. If I have to carry her down here, I will. And Olivia's like, chill. Like, she's tired. I will bring her up a plate later when she's ready for it, So then they, of course, are talking about how they're going to keep Olivia safe. And Bryant suggests, maybe have her do some administration stuff to kind of keep her stuck in one place. She is like, absolutely not. You're not going to take away my career, She winds up saying, fuck you to Bryant. He didn't get too pissed off. She apologized to him. Afterwards, James took her upstairs, read her a book. Again, this feels like no need to have children because he treats her like a child. So, happy ever. So, after he reads to her, she winds up falling asleep. So, the next day, they've got a few things to do. They've got a showing to go to. And Shannon doesn't want to just stay home. She's like, let me help. I can do small things. I won't, overwork myself or anything like that. And so when James comes in, Olivia's like, well, we've got to ask him, because he'll have the final say. At first, he's like, no, but then he does agree. But he tells her, eventually, you feel like you can't do something, you take a break. If not, I'm going to be having you writing lines, So she says, fine. So Olivia had to go get ready. And it was taking her a little bit longer. And Olivia's like, I need like 20 more minutes. And he's like, no, we need to go now. So he agreed to let her, leave a little bit later. And they apparently have people watching the house. So she should be fine. So he leaves along with Shannon. So she's right about to leave when she gets a call from Marianne. And Marianne's telling her the property, this expensive one that they've been trying to sell, there's a person that wants to see it right now. They're at the house. And so she looks and she's like, wait a minute, Marianne, where are you calling from? Why is this your cell phone? And she says, no, I'm sorry. She says, why are you at work? And she says, oh, I wanted to get caught up on some things, and the work phone is busy. That's why I'm calling you from the cell phone. So she's like, okay. She's like, I'll be there in 15 minutes. So Marianne's okay, cool. They hang up. We've she had asked her, is it the husband and wife? And she didn't get an answer. She hung up the phone. So she gets there, and it's this beat up SUV that looks a lot like hers, but she doesn't want to judge. So she gets out, the guy gets out, and immediately she feels dread. And the guy's smiling at her, and it feels really creepy. And sure enough, the guy's like, when Olivia says, are we waiting for your wife? And he's like, no, my wife trusts my opinion. We don't have to wait for her. And then when she looks down, she sees the barrel of a gun. And he says, we need to go inside before people start to ask questions. So Olivia, of course, is panicking. And when she walks in the house, she sees Mary Ann's ass. So then we switch to James's POV. He's panicking. He's flipping out because he's been calling Olivia's phone and he's not getting any answers. Shannon's trying not to worry, but she winds up saying to him, hey, what about the find my phone thing? And he thought it was just something to make your phone ring. She says, no. It'll tell you her location. He's like, it's worth a shot. So he looks up and he sees that she's at one of their listing properties. And he's like, oh, shoot. He knows it's got to be the killer has got her. So he calls the detective. He calls Bryant, tells them the location. The detective's telling him, you can't go. Hold down. He's like, I am not staying here while she is with a killer. So he gets to the property. Bryant's already there. Bryant's got a crowbar. He's ready to go. The detective pulls up. They're telling James he can't go in. And they wind up knocking James down and cuffing him because he made a run for it because he heard a gunshot. And so he's screaming out Olivia's name, but he doesn't know what happened. So we switch back to Olivia's POV. And so this is what happens when she gets inside. So the guy's name is Nate, and this is Marianne's boyfriend. And he starts talking about how, I'm sorry how, bad she would talk to you, Marianne, and all this type of stuff, and how fake Olivia was being when she took her out and wanted to make her think that they were being friends and all this type of stuff. And the only reason she has a job there is because Olivia is because she's sucking off the boss. Just all this stuff. And then she said, I do my job. That's why I have my position. And so he slaps the shit out of Olivia and she can taste blood. Marianne is looking scared. She's like, you said you were just going to talk. You said you were just going to talk. And she's like, you didn't say you were going to do anything else. So then he had the gun pointing at Olivia. He was ready to take her out. And Marianne apparently had the gun and she winds up shooting him. The police had a gun too. The police come in. They shoot. Well, no, they didn't have to shoot anybody because Marianne shot freaking Nate. And so they, of course, are yelling at Marianne, put the gun down, all this type of stuff. And Olivia is screaming, she saved my life, she saved my life. And I'm like, hold on, boo-boo. This bitch sets you up. She is a fucking accessory. Okay? What was the purpose? Like, I can understand manipulation. This is a guy, remember, it was only 3 dates, so it's someone that she just started dating. But it's the idea that she knows there's a killer on the loose, and she couldn't put two and two together that somebody trying to get you alone is the person. Like, are you fucking serious? But she, of course, is still trying to make a fucking case for this hoe. I don't agree. she's a co-conspirator, fuck her, she need to go up the damn up the river. I wouldn't care, you know. It was so stupid. Eventually they wheel out Olivia, because they got to get her checked out, and she sees James handcuffed, freaking out. She had a good laugh laughing at him, seeing him handcuffed, because she never thought she would ever see something like that. The next day she wakes up, she's got an I don't think anything's broken, she's just bruised really badly, and he tells her what's going down. So the Nate guy, he's not dead. um he's not going to be able, James, to keep Marianne from facing any consequences. um he did get her a lawyer because he saw how adamant Olivia was about this shit. But again, I'm just like, girl, whew. But anyway, the reason that Nate did all this is because Nate was the one that came in for an interview. So he was actually the guy that she had bumped into when we first started reading. That was Nate. And James had basically told him, like, he wasn't a good fit. But what he really felt was that the dude was trash and X, Y, and Z. And so this all comes from this guy feeling that he wanted to take everything away from James because he didn't get the job. I said, that's insane. Again, which furthermore makes me feel like Marianne still ain't shit, because you know that guy came in for an interview and you know he didn't get the job. So how could you not see the correlation? That doesn't make sense. So no justice for Marianne as far as I'm concerned. I hope they get her. Olivia was a little afraid that she was going to get a punishment because she went to the property when she wasn't supposed to. She didn't let him know where she was. She didn't do anything she was supposed to do. And he was like, he's not going to be able to punish her, especially when she's in the pain that she is. But she needs some type of punishment. So he tells her she has to go a week without her phone. She freaked out about it, but she accepted it. And I guess just for her, no punishment. She needs to feel punishment. So I'm gonna go with she's what is it? Masochist. She's gotta be. I just don't see it being anything else. We fast forward a month and she's working her way back into the job, our girl Olivia. He's got a surprise for her. And they were talking about Shannon because Shannon's been over. She's been going to therapy appointments. Let me say it correctly. She's supposed to have been going to therapy appointments, but she's been canceling. And Olivia and James basically threatened her, and so she's got to go this time because James is like, he'll spank her if she doesn't go. So that got her to do it. So James is taking Olivia to an appointment. She, of course, is trying to guess what it is. And it's to a car lot. He's bought her a convertible. So when they went to Ocean, whatever it's called, on the Ocean City, that's what it's called. When he took her there, they had rented a convertible, and she really liked it, and she kind of felt like, if we're gonna have a beach property, we should have a convertible. And he was just kind of like, we don't need a third vehicle, blah 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 blah. But of course, after she got attacked, he got her that damn convertible. And so Shannon requested to spend a few days there as well, and Olivia wants to play matchmaker. James is like, you better not, or you're going to get punished. And in Olivia's mind, it's worth it if it's going to put together her two favorite people, Bryant and Shannon. And so that's how it ends. Now, if you want to read Shannon and Bryant's story, that one's going to be in Daddy's Laws. So if you want to read their story, you can. I'm not going to review it on the channel. But again, it could be a fun read. I think I'll check it out. What did you all think? I really liked the mystery aspect of it. I can't really remember. We've done a lot of books, guys, but I can't really remember um, any books with a mystery type of an element. You know what I mean? So if you all know of any erotic fiction, mystery books, if you all could drop those down in the comment section, I'll definitely check those out in the future because that was kind of fun. Even though the daddy thing was weird in this one, um, it was different. But I did again like the fact that we kind of got to look at a marriage 12 years in with a type of dynamic as a dom and submissive. Went a little further, but but it was still kind of like that dom submissive relationship. So that was neat. Um Overall, I did like it. There were some parts that were cringe to me, and I expressed that throughout the review. Let me know if you guys kind of felt the same, or if you have a better understanding of it. That would be great as well. Let me know what you think. Drop down in the comment section and let me know. If you are in the market for a beautiful notebook or journal, I do have those available, and the links are going to be available down below in the description section. Make sure you like and subscribe. And as always, I truly do thank you all for your support, and thank you for tuning in to the Always Reading Book Club.